So as of now, we have seen different schemes for some of the common equations in each type of PDE. Like for parabolic PDE, we saw diffusion equation, and under elliptic PDEs, we saw Laplace equation, and under hyperbolic PDEs, we saw wave equation. And for each of these equations, we saw different schemes like FTCS and FTBS, etc. And then we did stability analysis for each of these schemes as well. So as of now, at the end, we finished with hyperbolic PDEs, and then we introduced artificial viscosity last time. So now to elaborate on artificial viscosity, let us consider a wave equation, which is this equation. In this equation, a is greater than 0, so the wave speed is positive. So for this equation, let's do first order upwind discretization. So you do forward in time, and when the wave speed is positive, so when your stencil is something like this, and when the wave speed is positive, that is when a is greater than 0, then information to I comes from left. So when you do first order upwind discretization, when it's first order, you just consider an extra point, that is you just consider 2 points. So along with I, you consider one more point. So for that, when a is positive, so information comes from left, so you consider I minus 1. So now when you consider I and I minus 1, what you get is backward differencing in space, something like this. So backward differencing in space turns out to be the first order upwind discretization when a is greater than 0. Similarly, when a is less than 0, you consider I plus 1 instead of I minus 1. So in that case, you will have forward differencing in space when a is less than 0. So you have gotten some scheme like this. You have done forward in time and backward in space. So this is an FTBS scheme. So this is the first order upwind discretization for the wave equation under consideration when a is greater than 0. So now to this first FTBS scheme, let us do the modified PDE analysis. Let us now try to expand each of these terms, ui n plus 1 and ui minus 1 n. I mean, let's expand these two terms and then substitute them back to the same equation. So this first thing is the Taylor expansion for ui at n plus 1, and this next expression is the Taylor expansion for ui minus 1 at n. So now let us substitute these Taylor expansions in the FTBS scheme, which is expression 1. So now upon substitution, we have obtained something like this expression. So now we can cancel certain terms, and also we can cancel this delta t. So uin and uin will go off, this uin and this uin will go off. Also we can cancel this powers of delta t with delta t which is there in the denominator. Similarly with delta x. So we have gotten an expression like this. So this expression has some order 1 term, and it has order delta t and order delta x terms, and it also has order delta t squared and order delta x squared terms. So let us arrange them accordingly. So first I have separated the order 1 terms here. So dou u by dou t plus a dou u by dou x is on the left side, and I am taking all the other terms to the right. So now this here in this, if we notice, we have some derivatives in time and derivatives in space, both of them. Also, if you notice, this is the actual equation that we are solving by using our FTBS scheme. We are not necessarily solving the given governing equation. We are actually solving this equation number 2. When we use this scheme, we are actually solving this equation number 2. So the left hand side is the same as the one which is there in the governing equation, but on the right hand side we have 0. Whereas in expression 2 we have some extra terms, and this is not these extra terms are never ending. It goes on actually. You will have place order delta t cube comma delta x cube terms going. So these are the terms that appear on the right hand side. So now the highest order term in the right hand side of this expression contributes to diffusion. So now let us try to convert these second order derivatives in time to derivatives in space, not just second order. All the derivatives in the right hand side, some derivatives are in space and some of them are in time. So let us just convert these derivatives in time to derivatives in space. For that, let us differentiate this equation to with respect to time first. So just this term has been differentiated with each of all the terms here are differentiated with respect to time, and I've written them as equation number 3. Now similarly again differentiate this equation 2 with respect to x, that is the space variable. So now again the same thing has happened. Each of the terms in equation 2 have been differentiated with respect to x, and the full equation is written here. So that is our equation 4. So now let us multiply this equation 4 with minus a. So you have gotten something like this, which is equation 5. So now let's just add this equation 3 and equation 5. So then what you'll get is this expression. So I've written them completely over here. So now upon cancellation these two terms will go off, so you get something like this: dou squared u by dou t squared minus a squared dou squared u by dou x squared equals some order delta t and delta x terms. So this is of order delta t and this is of order delta x, and that goes on up to order. The next term will be of order delta t squared and delta x squared, and it goes on. So I've just written them as just order delta t squared and delta x squared terms. So now from this expression it can be seen that then you just write this exactly over here, and this is of order delta t and delta x. So I'm just not writing these terms completely, but instead I'm writing it as just order delta t and delta x terms. So similarly, when you differentiate this equation further, that is, when you differentiate this equation further with respect to space and time, you will get third order derivatives. So upon doing the similar kind of thing, you can get expressions like this. It is for third order derivative in time, you have something like a third order derivative in space plus some order delta t delta x. Similarly, for different order of derivatives in time, you completely write those terms in terms of spatial derivatives plus some order delta t and delta x. So that is what we are doing in all of these 4 equations. So by doing further differentiation, we get these 4 equations. So basically you have written these time derivatives in terms of some spatial derivative plus order delta t and delta x term. So now we can substitute these 4 equations back in equation 2. That is our initial equation, that is this one. So in now we have found an expression for dou squared u by dou t squared in terms of dou squared u by dou x squared, right? So dou squared u by dou t squared is some constant into dou squared u by dou x squared plus some order delta t and delta x. So now let me just show it here. So this can now be written as some constant into dou squared u by dou x squared plus order delta t and delta x. So now this can be just this, some constant into dou squared u by dou x squared plus order delta t squared comma delta t delta x. So this gives second order accuracy. So when you substitute this expression back in equation 2. Sorry, this back in this equation 2, you will get something like this, plus order delta t squared and delta x squared. These terms can be neglected because further this equation will itself be written in terms of delta t squared and delta x squared only. So yeah, upon substituting these four expressions back in equation 2, we get something like this. So now upon further simplification, actually I have not written many terms here. So upon further simplification of all those, you will get something like left hand side of the governing equation equals some constant into dou squared u by dou x squared plus some other constant into dou cube u by dou x squared and so on. So now this term, that is this full term, is the numerical diffusion term, and this part is the numerical diffusion coefficient. So this is actually any diffusion coefficient is a viscosity, right? So this numerical diffusion coefficient is our artificial viscosity here. So we call this term a delta x by 2 factorial into 1 minus a delta t by delta x as artificial viscosity. So we are actually solving this equation and not the full governing equation. When we are solving this FTBS scheme in the computer, we are actually solving the equation that I am showing over here, and we are not solving the governing equation dou u by dou t plus a dou u by dou x equals 0. So essentially the convection equation becomes convection diffusion equation when we solve it numerically. So to any solution we are adding diffusion. If it's of say in some schemes you may not have this dou squared u by dou x squared as the leading term. Instead you may have some odd order derivative term like dou cube u by dou x squared. So suppose if this coefficient had been 0, this will be the leading order term. In that case you are solving convection dispersion equation. So it's like even order derivatives will cause diffusion and odd order derivatives will cause dispersion. So any doubts?
No.
Okay. So now let's further see the drawbacks of using the first order append method. So as of now, we have seen how we discretize this convection equation, that is the wave equation alone. And then we saw the concept of artificial viscosity using that. Now let us consider an equation which has both convection and diffusion terms. So now the equation itself has some diffusion. So now let's see what happens to artificial viscosity and which viscosity will dominate and all. So here again let's consider that A is greater than 0 and the viscosity coefficient mu is also greater than 0. So when A is greater than 0, backward in space becomes the appropriate upwind direction. So like appropriate upwind scheme for the governing equation. So now let's do an FTBS again for the convection diffusion equation. So this is the FTBS, and here again you do Taylor expansion for these terms and substitute them over here. So you get an equation like dou u by dou t plus a dou u by dou x, and on the right hand side you here have the actual viscosity plus due to this discretization you have some additional terms coming up like order delta t and order delta x terms. So in these additional terms you have some derivatives in time and derivatives in space. So you convert these derivatives in time into spatial derivatives by using the same procedure that we followed initially. Just differentiate further and further and write the expressions in, write the derivatives in time in terms of derivatives in space plus some order delta t or order delta t squared terms, and you accordingly remove them. So doing that procedure, you get some expression like this. This is the convection part of your actual governing equation, and this is the viscous part of diffusion part of the governing equation, and this is the additional part. So now this is the numerical diffusion part, whereas this is the actual diffusion part, and this is the numerical diffusion coefficient or artificial viscosity, whereas this is the actual viscosity of the problem. So now you have this convection part equals numerical viscosity coefficient plus actual viscosity coefficient into dou squared u by dou x squared. You have something like this. So now here the artificial viscosity, again the same expression. So whenever A is such that this artificial viscosity is greater than the actual viscosity. So then, because artificial viscosity is completely governed by A, delta T and delta X. So for different values of A, your artificial viscosity will be different. So whenever A is such that artificial viscosity is greater than actual viscosity, then your numerical diffusion will dominate the actual diffusion of the problem. So that there's no also you can't predict when which will dominate. It all depends on the value of A. So this is one big drawback of the first order upwind schemes. That is, when you have this actual diffusion, when you already have an actual diffusion in the problem, your numerical diffusion, if it dominates the actual diffusion, then you will actually have more diffusion in the problem, so that is always there, but the effect of actual diffusion will not be seen when your numerical diffusion dominates the actual diffusion. So that is one problem. So that's one drawback of first order upwind method. And also it's governed by A, that is your convection coefficient. Artificial viscosity is governed by the wave speed A. Yeah. So any doubts here on artificial viscosity and numerical diffusion?
No.
Any doubt? Okay. So I'll move on to the difference between numerical schemes for incompressible and compressible flows. So first let's consider the governing equations for incompressible flows. So this is the continuity equation. This is the general continuity equation actually. So for incompressible flows, there's essentially we don't consider any variation in density. So this time derivative part goes off, and also here rho comes out because we don't consider any variation in rho. So you essentially get this part which is divergence of the velocity vector. So this becomes a continuity equation for incompressible flows. Further, let's consider momentum equations. Okay, I have written this only for already I have neglected the variations in rho, because anyways, usually we'll have dou by dou t of rho u. I have taken rho out already. I have not written some explicit equation like this, like the one that I've written in continuity case. So in momentum case, I have already neglected the variations in rho, and I have written a simple form of the equation in non-conservative form. So this is a u momentum, v momentum, and w momentum equations. So this equation essentially is in this system of equations is in non-conservative form. When you go to conservative form, you write the fluxes in this way. That is, here your flux terms are written as something like this. u dou u by dou x and so on. So now u dou when you say that u dou u by dou x can be written in conservative form, you just write it as dou by dou x of u squared. Okay, and this part again is written as dou by dou x of p by rho is written as that is 1 minus 1 by rho dou p by dou x is written as dou by dou x of minus p by rho essentially, and this part again is written as dou by dou x of something over here. So now you can notice that we have some additional the dou by dou x of u squared will give us 2u dou u by dou x. It won't give u dou u by dou x, but here again you consider these terms dou by dou y of uv. Here you will get u dou v by dou y plus v dou u by dou y. Similarly here you will get two terms. So out of these you can take out so from this you will have one extra u dou u by dou x, and from this you will have one extra u dou v by dou y, and here from here you will have an extra u dou w by dou z. Like other terms are already here, so you already have them. So these will be actually 0 from the continuity equation. You can based on continuity equation these terms will go to 0. So that way we have written these terms like u dou u by dou x, p dou u by dou y, and w dou u by dou z as dou by dou x of something. So when you say when you write the flux terms in this way, that is like instead of separating them out, if you write them as dou by dou x of some full quantity, then you say that the equation is in conservative form. So it's like any if you have any control volume, if your u is the variable of interest, then it's any change in u is governed by dictated by, like, if you have a control volume, so over time there'll be some change in u, so that will be equal to the flux of these quantities in different directions. So I've just done a 2D control volume. So in this case, we won't consider the variation in Z. So we'll only consider the variation in X and Y. So dou by dou X of this quantity. So any change in U here is governed by the movement of this quantity which is there inside dou by dou X in x direction, and also the movement of this quantity which is there in dou by dou y, that is dou by dou y of this quantity. So movement of this quantity in y direction. So inside a control volume, rate of change of u is equal to the flux of this quantity, flux of this quantity in x direction plus flux of this quantity in y direction. So when you can say such a thing based on the control volume picture, that is possible only in the conservative form. In case of non-conservative form, you cannot say anything like this. So that is why you call this system of equations as something in conservative form. So yeah, any doubts here between conservative and non-conservative form? Any doubts? Questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, yeah. So now let's just okay. So how many number of equations do we have for incompressible flows? I mean, in incompressible flows, how many equations do we have?
3 main equations, ma'am.
Okay, 3 along with continuity also. Like we have
Yes.
3 momentum plus 1 continuity.
Yes.
So 4 equations. And how many unknowns do we have?
Uh, 5, I guess.
I mean, row does not vary over time or space. Row, we don't consider any variation in row.
Yeah, then 4, ma'am.
And 4, yeah, 4 unknowns. So basically you have u, v, w and p. So we have 4 equations and 4 unknowns. So that is that. So let's keep it there. Now look at the u momentum equation. So if you discretize this equation, which variable will you be able to find at the next time step? So you have seen explicit schemes, so you'll keep all the variables in some nth time step, and you will keep just one term in n plus 1 time step, and you'll find the solution, right? So just look at the u momentum equation and tell me which variable will you be able to find at n plus 1 time step using this equation.
Ma'am, could you come again? I
Okay.
had a
So
network issue.
okay, yeah. So you're discretizing the, you have the u momentum equation and you discretize each of the terms. So when you do that, uh, you get an update equation, right? So which is like you in that equation you will be from using that equation you can find some variable at n plus 1 time step while keeping all the other variables at nth time step. Say let's go to the previous expression. So in this you had this equation, wave equation. So you discretize this wave equation as something like this. So here you kept all the variables at nth time step and you just kept one of the variables at n plus 1 time step, and using this equation uh, you find the solution for this variable while knowing these that is this variable is your unknown, and these are knowns in this update equation, right? This is at n plus 1 time step while all the others are at nth time step. So basically this is the unknown and these are all the other variables are known quantities. Since we have written an explicit scheme, it's an FTBS scheme. So one of the variables is at n plus 1 time step and all the other variables are at nth time step. Similarly, if you write an update equation for this equation, u momentum equation, which variable will be at n plus 1 time step? So this is the
You,
question.
ma'am.
Okay, yeah. So here u will be at n plus 1 time step. Similarly, here v will be at n plus 1 time step, and here w will be at n plus 1 time step. So essentially u momentum equation is an update equation for u, and v momentum equation is an update equation for v, and w is an update equation for w. So from continuity, will you be able to have any difference in time? Like if you discretize the variables in this continuity equation, will you be able to discretize? Will you be able to have terms at different time steps, like some of the terms being at n and some of the terms being at n plus 1? From continuity equation, if you discretize this kind of continuity equation, this equation, will you be able to have terms at different time steps?
No, ma'am.
No, yeah. So all of them will essentially be at the same time step. So this continuity equation is not an update equation. So it's just some kind of a constraint. So it's not an update equation, and you cannot find anything at a different time step using this equation. So you essentially have 4 equations and 4 unknowns. So, but you have only 3 update equations. You do not have an update equation for pressure. So that is one big problem in incompressible flows. So using these three equations, using these three momentum equations, you can find u, v and w at next time steps. But what will you use to find p at the next time step? So this is one major question in incompressible flows. So most of the numerical schemes of incompressible flows are directed in this direction. That is to find some way of updating pressure over time. So since we do not have any update equation for pressure, so we go for finding different ways to, you know, find the solution for pressure at the next further time steps. So for this, some kind of pressure velocity coupling has to be done. So we'll be looking at these things in the next lectures. We'll see some of the, common schemes that address this issue, and we'll go about solving different problems also. So this is one thing in incompressible flows. Next, going to compressible flows. So here, this is our continuity equation. So here, since we need to consider variations in density, we cannot take this quantity out, or we cannot neglect this term. So we need to consider this full equation only. And next is the momentum equation. This is the full momentum equation in strong conservative form. So I've written all u, v and w, written the equation in all directions. And next is the energy equation. So yeah, we have this stress tensor, and here again we have these stress tensors coming up, and we have this heat diffusion term. So this is essentially the full set of continuity, momentum and energy equations written in conservative form. Yeah, you see the difference, right? Why it's called as conservative form? Is it okay to say that it's in conservative form?
All of these equations, ma'am.
Yeah.
If you can, a little bit of rearrangement, like you can bring the right hand side to the left, then it can be written in conservative form.
Just these terms, if we join them, they can be in conservative form. Yes. Yeah. But we can still call them because we essentially don't call that. So suppose if we had terms like these, or here we won't be having such terms like these coming up, then it's not in conservative form. If all the terms are written as dou by dou x of something, then we can essentially call them as conservative form, because this rearrangement is always direct, right? We can always join them. So if all the terms are written in terms of in something like in some form like this, then we can say that the equation is in conservative form. Yeah. So now all these four equations, five equations are in conservative form. So now we have five equations, and how many unknowns do we have? How many unknowns do we have?
I think it's 4 again.
4. Actually, here you need to consider variations in rho also.
Oh, okay, it's compressible flow. Yes, ma'am. So 5.
So we have 5 unknowns. P or T, we can either have, because we'll through equation of state we'll have some connection, so it's either P or T. So we have 5 equations and 5 unknowns. So now consider this continuity equation to it's an update equation for which variable here? This has a time derivative. So tell me to which variable this serves as an update equation. Okay, yeah, rho. So now look at this U momentum equation. So suppose if you are writing this in non-conservative form, you'll have rho dou U by dou T plus U dou rho by dou T. And you can take from these also, from these terms you can get U dou by dou X of rho U. And from here you can get U dou by dou Y of rho V. Here again you can get something like this. So then you can cancel them, right? That will go off using continuity equation. So this will go to 0 because of continuity equation. So now you can just consider this part. So now to which equation, to which variable does this U momentum equation serve as an update equation? Is it clear? To which variable does U momentum equation serve as an update equation?
It's both rho and U, but since rho is already updating with continuity, I would say U.
So yeah, it's U because rho already gets updated, and also you can just remove these variations in U. I mean rho, sorry. So this term can be split up into two terms. Similarly, all the terms here can be split up into two different terms, and some of them can be combined to just make them 0. So variations in rho will go off when you consider such a thing. So in that, so essentially, when you convert an equation from from conservative form to non-conservative form, you will essentially split. Okay, let me write it neatly. So all the terms here can be written as so you have rho dou U by dou T plus well, okay. Okay, you have split this time derivative part here, and so the space derivative part also has been split. I'm not touching P here. So I'll just consider these terms alone. These terms will just stay as such. So now plus you have all the additional terms equals 0. I mean the stress tensor and pressure term. Those will come here and equal to 0. So now you can rearrange them like you just have all these variables. So I have U into dou rho by dou T plus dou by dou X of rho U plus dou by dou Y of rho V. Plus I have rho dou U by dou T plus rho into plus pressure and stress tensor part equals 0. So now this will go to 0. So this will be my only the rest of the part of the equation. This will go to 0 because of continuity equation. So now this is the non-conservative form of U momentum equation. So from conservative form you can go to non-conservative form in this way. So now from the conservative form you can easily say that U will be the update equation. U is the update variable. U is a variable that gets updated using U momentum equation. So similarly, V gets updated using V momentum equation and W gets updated using W momentum equation. So now look at energy equation. So in energy equation, consider this equation of state P equals rho RT, and along with that this is essentially the expression. This is total energy. This is internal energy plus kinetic energy. So total energy is internal plus kinetic energies. So this is an expression for internal energy. And through equation of state, I am rewriting P as RT by gamma minus 1. So this is essentially the expression for internal energy. So based on whatever equation of state you write, so if you look at the equation of state, rho is already getting updated in the energy equation. Continuity equation. So then you have two other variables, P and T. So both of them are related. Okay. So when you can either substitute P as rho RT or T as P by rho R. So essentially you will only have rho and one other variable. So in your internal energy you have P and rho, and in one expression, and in the other expression you have P alone as the variable. So if P can be written as rho and T in terms of rho and T, and T can inversely be written in terms of P and rho. So they are all interdependent. So now when you substitute this full expression for E here, you will have either rho and P or rho and T in this rho E expression. So you have rho E here. So rho E will become rho into, I'm substituting it as P by rho into gamma minus 1 plus half into U squared plus V squared plus W squared. So this is my expression for rho E. So this will become P by gamma minus 1 plus half rho into U squared plus V squared plus W squared. So now you are already updating rho, U and V, all these variables, rho, U, V and W in continuity and momentum equations. So the only variable remaining here is P. Similarly, suppose if you write this P by rho into gamma minus 1 as RT by gamma minus 1, you'll have the equation to be rho RT by gamma minus 1 plus half rho into U squared plus V squared plus W squared. Here again, all the variables get updated. Rho also gets updated somehow from the continuity equation. So the only variable remaining is T. So when you substitute some form like this inside energy equation, you'll essentially get an update equation for either P or T. Suppose if you substitute the first form, you will get an update equation for P, and suppose if you substitute the second form, you will get an update equation for T. So you can either have either of these, like an update equation for P or T. It depends on the type of equation of state you use again. So depending on the type of equation of state you use, you can have different update equations. So essentially your energy equation serves as an update equation for either pressure or temperature. So any doubts here? Okay. So in compressible flows, if you notice, all the variables are having some update equations. Like in compressible flows, you have 5 unknowns and you have 5 equations, and all the 5 unknowns are getting updated in each of the 5 equations. Like for density, we have continuity. For velocity, you have u momentum, v momentum, and w momentum, respectively. And for pressure or temperature, we have energy. So in compressible flows, all the variables are getting updated through some update equation. Whereas in incompressible flows, P does not have an update equation. So this is one major difference. So essentially, all the numerical schemes for incompressible flows are directed towards somehow obtaining an update equation for pressure, or somehow finding an update for pressure. Like even without getting an update equation, you can somehow find a way of updating pressure over time. So essentially, all the numerical schemes for incompressible flows are directed in that direction, whereas in the numerical schemes for compressible flows do not have an update problem, and they are directed in a different direction, which is discontinuity capturing. So in compressible flows, you will experience discontinuities like shocks, contact discontinuities, and all. So the numerical schemes for compressible flows are mostly directed in that direction, towards capturing discontinuities, whereas the numerical schemes for incompressible flows are directed in the pressure update direction. So this is one major difference between the CFD for incompressible flows and CFD for compressible flows. Also, for compressible flows, you will require conservation. Like all our equations here are conservation equations, right? Are in conservative form. Plus, why do we require conservation? Can anyone suggest me? So, why do we why do we write equations in conservative form?
Ma'am, it depends on the problem, right? Like, if there is a lot of, if we want it like inside a control volume or something, then we go for conservation form. If we want it like in a differential form or in a discrete domain, then we would go for the other form.
Yeah. So it depends on your domain as well. Plus, most of the discontinuity problems, like problems where you encounter discontinuity, they are we want them to be written. We want such problems to be written in conservative form, because when we did PDEs, when you encounter discontinuities, your derivatives break down. We have seen that, right? So your derivatives essentially break down because your variables will vary drastically across discontinuities. So your PDEs won't make any sense anymore. So when you write them in conservative form, you still have PDEs, but when you integrate them, when you integrate these things that are written as integral of dou by dou x of something is that variable itself, right, all the time. So you can easily do integration using some test. You can easily convert these things in in conservative form into a weak form, like what we have discussed earlier. Like we have seen weak form of the conservation laws and all, right? So we would convert the PDE into some kind of integral expression. So that kind of conversion will be easier when you are in conservative form. Plus, any governing equation is essentially obtained from a control volume. So we are in the integral form. So essentially, we have made it into PDEs by saying that all the time when you derive the governing equations, it's from the control volume first. Then we convert it into differential form by saying that you have some quantity inside this integral and that will be equal to 0. So when you say that something inside the integral is 0, then it has to be 0 at all points in that control volume. So essentially you equate this quantity which is inside the integral to 0. So that is how you obtain the differential form. This is integral form. So by making an assumption that when the integral of some quantity is 0, then that quantity itself has to be 0 at all points in the domain. So when you make that argument, you convert the integral form into differential form. So essentially differential form is obtained from integral form. But this differential form, you cannot always say that this quantity is 0 at all points in the domain. In some regions, when there are discontinuities, this won't be 0. So at those regions, differential form won't be valid, only integral form will be valid. So, sorry. So so you need to start from the integral form essentially when you're dealing with discontinuities. So discontinuities is one thing which requires you to start from integral form of conservation law. So if we always start from the integral form, and finite volume method starts from integral form. Whereas finite difference method starts from the differential form, and we just discretize it based on the points, the grid points. Whereas in finite volume method, we start from the integral form, and within each cell, finite volume method ensures conservation. In finite volume method, what is being done is that the whole domain is being split up into a number of cells, and inside each cell there will be conservation. So the physics is ensured inside each cell. But inside each cell, if you consider each point, then you won't have conservation. But at least at the level of each cell, there is conservation in finite volume method. So that is why for compressible flows, we go towards finite volume method instead of finite difference method. So we'll be seeing different numerical schemes for incompressible flows based on finite difference method. Like those will be directed in the direction of updation of pressure. Later we'll go to finite volume methods and see numerical schemes for compressible flows. So from now on, this will be our direction. So first let's concentrate on incompressible flows and pressure updation problem in the first part. After finishing this, we'll move on to compressible flows and finite volume method. So yeah, the compressible flow problems can also be done in finite difference method, but essentially whenever you encounter discontinuities, it's good to go to finite volume method because of this reason. That is, it ensures conservation, and when you have discontinuities, it is required for us to be in integral form rather than in differential form. And finite volume method starts from integral form, so it's always good for us to be in the finite volume framework when we are dealing with compressible flows. So that is the major difference between incompressible and compressible flows. So any doubts, questions?
No, ma'am. One of the I had read this about in, I think, the CFD book by J.D. Anderson, maybe.
Okay.
And ma'am, is that a book? Is that book good to refer to?
Yeah, Anderson is a good book. Like he writes well, and it goes in a proper flow. For the basic level to start with, if you're reading CFD for the first time, then Anderson is a good book to start with. So after that, you can go to other books. Like Anderson, the flow with which Anderson goes is like it mostly is like reading a story. Anderson, so it's a good book. Yeah, in fact, even I also started with Anderson only. Yeah, then you can go to other books after reading Anderson.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Like, could you give some kind of example of discontinuities that show up in like compressible flows? Any example?
Okay, can you repeat it? Like example?
An example of discontinuities that show up in compressible flows.
Okay. So yeah, you have different types of shocks. So you would have come across normal shock, oblique shocks and all. Like, have you heard of?
Yes, ma'am. We've had this, but never mathematically formulated it.
Okay. So yeah, in during the part of PDEs, we have done some kind of discontinuities in the scalar level, but not in the Navier-Stokes level. Yes. So yeah, in gas, like when we deal with compressible flows, I'll try to give you an example of discontinuities that we'll encounter in Navier-Stokes equation. So what we do is we have this full system of equations, right? In gas dynamics, we have this full system of equations in compressible flows in PD, in terms of PDs. So the basics of gas dynamics, like a full course in gas dynamics it does not start with this system of equations. So basically they make an assumption like 1D steady, and with all these assumptions they make the discontinuity, that is the normal shock will be steady, and then they make analysis. So suppose if you have a normal shock like this, around this normal shock they'll construct a control volume, and then these equations in that case will be converted into algebraic equations, and then it will be easy to study. So I mean, are you asking an example or how it's done mathematically? Yeah, I mean, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Okay, so are you asking? I'm not clear with the question. Are you asking an example for different types of shock, or how each type of shock can be analyzed mathematically?
Ma'am, I think Naman has got net issues or something.
Okay, okay.
But I think he meant the types of, like, how the discontinues are that, or just the shocks, the different types of shocks. Because the mathematical formulation, I think it's gonna come. We have gas dynamics the coming semester.
Yes.
So this 1D method and all they'll be teaching.
Okay. Yeah, this one. Yeah, they'll be teaching these things in gas dynamics course, I guess. Yes. Like one. I mean, all these shocks are essentially analyzed by making these simplifications, and then they'll study the properties of the shocks. So essentially, when you go for different types of shock, you have normal and oblique shocks, and you have like
Bow shock.
I mean, yeah, many different types of bow shock, carbuncle shocks. I mean, I'm not clear about the different types of shocks. So, but there are many different types of shocks, and I myself have not done a proper study of this different levels of shock. I just know normal and oblique shocks, and how they are done mathematically. Yeah. And there are many other different types of shocks like Mach reflection, Mach wave, many things. Yeah. So any questions, further questions? So when we go to CFD for compressible flows, then we can see probably the normal shock development, and I mean, formulation of normal shocks from the integral form, and then we'll move to finite volume methods based on this. So any further questions?
Yes.
Yeah. Any questions?
No, nothing from my side.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll meet tomorrow then. We'll see we'll start with CFD for incompressible flows tomorrow. That is, we'll see different numerical schemes for incompressible flows from tomorrow. Yeah.
Ma'am, can we again have the class at 10? Because I think three of us here, we have a meeting at 11.
Okay, fine. We'll have the class at 10 tomorrow. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Mostly I'll try to make it 10, but